In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a good locator map. I am going to show you what I did rather than do it along with you because ArcGIS Pro started getting really slow. I don't know why, much slower than ArcMap traditionally was. I think the reason is project on the fly. So I'm also going to use this as a demonstration and project on the fly and when you want to use it and when you don't. So what I've done is I've loaded up some data sets here. Most of them are in geographic. Okay, there we go. We should be able to hold C down at any time and move them around. So this is geographic data. You can see it's projected geographic data. Please don't use this. Your first map, it's okay, but then you should be using projected data. One of the biggest things with a locator map is we've got to pick the extent. If your readership is folks in California, you could just show a portion of California and they may, oh, okay, up here, got it. But if they're not from California, if they're from around the United States or an international group, you may need to provide a much bigger context for it. If you provide the whole world, please do not use geographic as the projection. There's a whole bunch of other projections out there. There are a number that you don't want to use, and you can go to projected coordinate system, then down to world, and there's a large number here. Please do not use ones like Mercator. It's actually worse than geographic because of the distortion that it has. You want to have something that looks pretty good and does a nice job with the distortion. We can't get rid of the distortion, but we can minimize it. Natural Earth, there's a couple of them that were done by folks that I got to work with at Oregon State, Bernie Yenny and his graduate students. So nice balance for the whole Earth, but notice it's not really taking care of North America. If our extent is North America, then we want to use a spatial reference for North America. And if you go into, again, projected coordinate systems, you'll see there's a grouping for continental, and there's a whole bunch for North America, focused on Canada or different other areas. North America, Albers equal area is a real common one. I'm sure you've seen this on maps. And there it is. Now you can also see that this is called project on the fly. As I'm changing my spatial reference for my map, my data is being projected by ArcGIS Pro on the fly to the spatial reference I picked. Now, the reason I pointed this out here is we had a state layer and a county layer here a minute ago, and they're now gone. So ArcGIS Pro is having a hard time redrawing our layers. That's not a good thing. That's going to make this much more difficult, and I'm going to be pausing and resuming to let it catch up and draw everything. Okay, it took a minute, but it did redraw finally. And now you can see this is a good spatial reference for North America. Okay, not quite up into Canada all the way, but the rest of North America and certainly the Caribbean. So yeah, nice projection. However, again, if we're focused on California, not as good. Let's switch over and try look for one for California. Now, sometimes you'll find them this way, sometimes you won't. It's often easier to browse. But here we go, state systems, and there is a California teal albers. In fact, there's a WGS 84 California teal albers. That is the main spatial reference for California if you need to do the whole state. And there we go, we've got the whole state. And again, ArcGIS is having a hard time drawing layers, and it's back. Okay, now, you may have noticed that the background is blue. You can do base maps, but these are really complicated. Please do not use this as the base map. I'm going to turn off my other layers, and you'll see that no matter what you do, these layers have cutoff text. And this text is just, regardless, it's really hard to read. Okay? Even when it's not cut off, it's hard to read. And, you know, yeah, just don't use them. Please don't use them. Much easier to just use a blue background. And then simple shapefiles. Locator map should be simple. There we go. Okay, now I think this is pretty good. We could use some labels. I'm going to add those later. So now what we need is a layout. I'm going to go ahead and actually do a new layout. And you can do a custom page size, or you can do a letter and then resize it. This just brings you into the dialog to create it right away. Same one you get to if you resize it later. And now we can go ahead and insert our map frame and just roughly drop it in, because then immediately, well, as soon as we can, we'll go to properties and change the size to be 5 by 5 or whatever size you like. Locator maps, if they're really simple, can be pretty small. And the position to be 0, 0. And that should have moved it. And it did not move our map frame, and I don't know why. Looks like I'm breaking our map all over again, so I'm just going to fit it there myself. And it looks like I got pretty close. Okay, good enough. Now notice we lost our blue background, so let's go ahead and do properties and change our background to our nice blue color. There we go. Okay. And then the one thing we're missing is our rectangle. So we can just draw a rectangle around Humboldt County. Go ahead and do properties, symbol, doesn't need to have a fill color, make the outline color something bold. Red's probably a little bit too bold, but I like it. Sure. Now at this extent, folks might recognize which direction is north and about what our extent is, or our scale is, pretty easily, especially if they're familiar with the area. But it's not quite the world, so I do want to go ahead and insert a north arrow. Nice north arrow and a scale bar, and there's a lot of different options for scale bars. I recommend using one. I like using meters, and I recommend using one that's pretty simple. We'll deal with the numbers in a second. We want to take a look at the areas that are empty, that don't have anything really interesting in them, like we've got all this blue ocean here. That's a great place to put our north arrow and our scale bar. Could be down here, could be up here. Notice arc is also helping us to line these up, because you want to have about an even gap around your map elements. In other words, you don't want the scale bar to be over here. You certainly don't want it touching, and you don't want it to be really close and then the north arrow really far from the edge. You want to have about the same distance from the edge for each of your map elements. Place them out nicely. This is where we get into the aesthetics. But that was very easy to do because I have a nice simple background. Okay, now with the scale bar, you're also going to want to fix those numbers, because yuck. And you can try and scale it to have it look better, but I've spent a lot of time trying to do that and not had it work very well. So you can also just go over here and just simplify it. There we go. 1300 is not a great number. 1320. We could even just scale it until we get 1,000. Ooh, there we go. So, very nice, simple locator map that I can now export as a JPEG and call it good. And then bring it insert into Microsoft Word.